Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we are going to be exploring excerpts from a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Nguyen. And this is going to be fun.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good one. So get ready to rethink how you think as we uncover the root cause of suffering and explore this intriguing concept of non-thinking as a pathway to peace, love, and joy, and all that good stuff.
I love it. I'm ready. Let's dive in.
Let's do it. So Nguyen kicks things off with this really bold statement. He says, we don't actually experience reality directly. Instead, we live in a world that's created by our thoughts.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right. And that means two people can experience the same event, but have totally different perceptions of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like you and I could both be in like a super stressful meeting.
Right.
But one of us could be totally calm and the other one, like freaking out.
Yeah, totally. It's like each of us is wearing these like personalized glasses that kind of filter how we see the world.
Like rose-colored glasses or, dark-colored glasses.
Exactly. And Nguyen gives this example of people's perceptions of, let's say, a political figure.
Okay.
Like ask 100 different people their opinion, and you're going to get 100 different answers, each one kind of colored by their own unique experiences and belief.
Totally. And that all kind of ties into, I think, one of the main points that Nguyen makes in the book, which is that it's not actually external events that cause our suffering.
Okay.
It's our thinking about those events.
So hold on a sec. When we talk about suffering, are we talking about like physical pain, or are we talking about more like emotional distress?
That's a great question. He actually makes this really clear distinction between pain, which is inevitable,
right,
and suffering, which he says is optional.
Okay, I like that.
So pain is like stubbing your toe.
Right.
You just feel that sensation.
Right.
But the suffering is the mental, emotional stuff we add on top of it.
Right.
Like, oh, why me?
This is going to ruin my whole day.
Yeah, exactly. Or replaying the painful event in your mind over and over.
Yeah, getting stuck in that loop.
Exactly. So the question is, how do we break free from that cycle of suffering?
Right.
Because, we all do it, right?
Oh, for sure.
We all get caught in it. And Nguyen, he proposes this path that might seem a little counterintuitive at first.
Okay.
He calls it non-thinking.
Non-thinking.
Now, before you imagine us, advocating for a mindless existence,
right,
he's not saying to shut off your brain completely.
No.
It's more about examining the quality of our thinking.
Interesting. So he's not saying don't think. He's saying think better.
Yeah, think differently.
Yeah.
Be more aware of the types of thoughts we're having.
Okay. I like that. So how do we do that?
Well, he breaks down thinking into two categories.
Okay.
He calls them thoughts and thinking.
Interesting.
So thoughts are kind of like these spontaneous bursts of insight, almost like a download from somewhere else. Those aha moments when a solution just pops into your head?
Oh, yeah.
Or a creative idea.
And that feels good.
It does. And then thinking is when our ego gets involved. It's the analysis, the judgment, that constant mental chatter that can kind of spiral us down.
Oh, yeah.
Into negativity.
Okay. So how do we know if it's a thought or if it's thinking?
That's where his thoughts versus thinking chart is really helpful.
Oh, yeah, he mentioned that. I saw that.
Yeah, he lays out these clear distinctions, like thoughts are light, expansive, and they often come with a sense of peace.
Okay.
While thinking tends to feel heavy, constricted, and can even trigger those stress responses.
Well, like fight or flight.
Exactly.
Got it. So thoughts create and thinking destroys. I've heard that before.
Exactly. And when we get stuck in those destructive thinking patterns, it blocks us from accessing the peace, love, and joy that are already within us.
Our natural state.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's interesting. So much to think about.
I know, right.
But I think we're going to have to leave it there for part 1. We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we have.
But join us for part 2, where we'll explore how to tap into that natural state of peace, love, and joy through non-thinking. And we'll delve deeper into those distinctions between thoughts and thinking.
Sounds good. I'll see you there.
Awesome. See ya.
It's interesting when we talk about peace, love, joy, this being our natural state.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are probably like, well, then why don't I feel that all the time?
Yeah.
Why am I not experiencing that constantly? It's like, well, maybe it's because our minds are kind of getting in the way. I like to think back to a time where I felt like pure joy.
Yeah.
Were you thinking a lot in that moment, or were you just fully present?
That's a good point. I'm thinking of a time I was hiking in these mountains and I finally reached the top.
Okay.
And it was just these breathtaking views everywhere. And I was just completely present.
Yeah.
All I felt was this awe and gratitude.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And it was just being there.
Yeah.
No thinking.
That's it. And, another example is babies.
Oh, yeah.
They're just naturally joyful and present until they start to, absorb all that societal conditioning and develop those thought patterns that kind of pull them away from that bliss.
So it's not that we need to like create this peace and love and joy. It's more about removing the obstacles that are blocking us from experiencing it.
Exactly. Like clearing the mental clutter so our natural state can kind of shine through.
I love that. Okay, so this is what I was thinking about when I first read about non-thinking.
Yeah.
What about goals and ambitions?
Well,
don't those require thinking?
That's a really common question.
Yeah.
And Nguyen, he addresses that by differentiating between goals that come from desperation and goals that are fueled by inspiration.
So what's the difference?
So goals from desperation, they often stem from like fear, like a feeling of not enoughness.
Right.
They tend to be really heavy, driven by external validation.
Yeah.
And they can leave us feeling constantly striving.
Oh, yeah.
Never quite satisfied.
Like always chasing something.
Totally. And then goals from inspiration are more about aligning with our true purpose and our passions.
Okay.
They come from that inner knowing, a deep sense of calling. And when we pursue those types of goals, it feels effortless and joyful, even when challenges come up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And to help us kind of figure out where our goals are coming from.
Yeah.
Nguyen poses this really powerful question.
I love this question.
He says, if I had infinite money already traveled, the world had no fear,
Right.
and didn't need any external recognition for my work,
Yeah.
what would I do or create?
It really cuts to the chase, doesn't it?
It does. Like it removes all those external motivators and forces us to really confront what we truly desire.
Yeah, totally. And it makes you realize that a lot of the things that we're striving for, they're not actually what we truly want.
We just think we want them.
Exactly.
This reminds me of another key concept in the book, Unconditional Love.
Oh, yeah.
Nguyen shares this really beautiful personal story about how he learned about unconditional love from his girlfriend.
Oh, I love that story.
Yeah, she would always tell him that she loved him, and when he'd ask her why, she'd just say, I just do.
Simple as that.
Yeah, but he really struggled with that because his mind was so used to attaching reason.
Yeah, conditions.
Yeah, like you need a list of reasons to justify love.
Totally. But her love was just a state of being, an acceptance of him for exactly who he was.
Flaws and all.
Yeah, and that experience led him to this really profound realization that unconditional love is a state of pure acceptance.
That's beautiful. And it's interesting how that relates to unconditional creation.
Yes.
Creating just for the pure joy of it.
Yeah.
Without expectations or conditions on the outcome.
Totally, like creating from this place of abundance where the process itself is already fulfilling.
Regardless of the results.
Exactly.
But I have to say, shifting to this state of non-thinking and trusting our intuition, it's not always easy.
It's not. It can be challenging, especially in the beginning, because our minds are so used to being in control.
Yeah, like we're programmed to think.
Totally. So letting go of that control and stepping into the unknown can be kind of scary.
Yeah, it can bring up some resistance.
For sure.
Yeah.
So what are some of those obstacles that we might encounter when we're on this path?
Yeah, what should we watch out for?
Well, one common hurdle is definitely the fear of the unfamiliar.
Oh, yeah.
Our minds crave certainty and predictability.
Right.
So venturing into this state of non-thinking, where we're surrendering to the unknown, it can trigger that anxiety and that resistance.
It's like our ego is trying to hold on for dear life.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's funny, Nguyen actually describes it as like the ego's death throes.
Oh, wow.
We might experience like increased worry, self-doubt.
Yeah.
Even a feeling of like losing our edge.
Like we're not sharp anymore.
Exactly. It's the ego's way of trying to convince us that we need it to survive.
Oh, wow. So how do we overcome that fear
and
step into this new way of being?
The key is faith.
Okay.
Trusting that even when it feels uncomfortable, the universe is supporting us. It's about cultivating this sense of surrender, not as like a weakness, but as an act of courage.
Surrendering to what?
Surrendering to the flow of life, to our intuition, to the wisdom that's already inside of us.
That makes sense. So when we talk about intuition, how do we actually tune into that? It can feel kind of abstract, especially if we've been conditioned to just rely on logic.
Totally. And Nguyen describes intuition as our inner GPS, like this real-time guidance system that's always available to us.
It's always on.
Yeah, but it often speaks in whispers, not shouts.
Right.
It might guide us in directions that seem totally illogical or counterintuitive to our rational minds.
That makes sense. I'm thinking of this Zen story that Nguyen uses to kind of illustrate this point.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
It's the one with the master and the scholar.
Oh, yeah.
The scholar approaches the master, super eager to learn, but his cup is so full of his own ideas and opinions
Right.
that there's literally no room for the master's teachings.
There's no space.
Yeah, and it highlights this need to empty our cups.
Yeah, to let go.
To let go of all our preconceived notions and the mental clutter to make space for new insights.
Yeah, for new perspective.
Yeah, and ultimately for our intuition to flow.
Exactly.
So how do we do that? Like, how do we empty our cups?
Yeah, in a practical sense.
Yeah.
Well, there are so many ways. Practices like meditation, spending time in nature, engaging in creative pursuits,
Okay.
even just taking a few conscious breaths throughout the day.
Right.
These all help to kind of quiet that mental chatter and create that inner space.
So it's like non-thinking is about creating the conditions for those aha moments,
Right.
for those bursts of inspiration and clarity.
You could say that. It's about cultivating this state of receptivity where we're open to receiving guidance
Right.
from a source beyond our thinking minds.
That's powerful. And when we do that,
Yeah,
we open ourselves up to the possibility of miracles.
exactly.
Yeah.
Miracles don't usually happen when our minds are all cluttered with worries and doubts and fears. They tend to occur when we create the space for them to emerge, when we surrender to the unknown and trust that something greater is at work. So as we wrap up this deep dive into non-thinking,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah.
Things they can start experimenting with.
Yeah. What can they actually do?
Well, first off, remember that, suffering comes from our thinking, but we actually have the power to choose peace, love, and joy through this idea of non-thinking
Right.
and following our intuition.
And it's not about becoming like emotionless robots or anything.
No, not at all.
No.
It's more about just recognizing when we're caught in those thought loops
Yeah.
that are creating suffering and then gently guiding ourselves back to that place of presence.
Okay. So how do we actually do that?
Well, one powerful way is to just cultivate practices that create space in our lives, whether that's meditation, spending time in nature, engaging in creative pursuits,
Right.
or even just taking a few mindful breaths throughout the day,
Just coming back to the present moment.
Exactly. And these practices, they help us detach from that constant mental chatter and tap into that inner stillness where peace already resides.
And as we cultivate that inner stillness, I think we become more attuned to our intuition,
Yeah.
that inner GPS.
Exactly. Giving us, and remember, intuition often whispers, doesn't shout.
Right.
So it's about cultivating that sense of inner listening, paying attention to those subtle nudges and gut feelings.
Those little whispers.
Exactly. The ones that guide us toward, aligned actions and decisions.
Yeah, and Nguyen leaves us with this really powerful thought.
Yeah.
He says, "You are already all the love, joy, peace, and fulfillment you have ever wanted. It is only when we forget that fact and get caught up in our thinking that we do not see it."
Wow.
Right? It's a beautiful reminder that everything we seek is already within us.
Yeah.
We don't need to search outside ourselves for happiness or peace or fulfillment.
Oh.
It's all right here.
It's all within.
Yeah, just waiting to be uncovered. By quieting the mind and reconnecting with our true nature.
I love that. So for all our deep divers out there,
Yeah.
I encourage you to embrace the transformative power of non-thinking.
Yeah.
Experiment with the concepts we've explored today.
Yeah, play with it.
Yeah, see what unfolds in your own life.
Yeah.
You might be surprised by the miracles that await you when you let go of that thinking mind and step into the flow of intuition and presence.
Beautifully said. And remember that this journey to inner peace, it's a continuous process.
Yes,
It's not a destination.
It's a practice.
Yeah, there will be times when you fall back into old patterns of thinking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But with each moment of awareness,
Right.
you have the opportunity to choose again,
Yes.
to choose peace, to choose love, to choose joy.
I love that.
And in doing so, you step into your true power, the power to create a life that's aligned with your deepest desires and your soul's highest calling.
Beautiful. So well said.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into non-thinking.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning. Yes.
And keep diving deep into the mysteries of the mind and the boundless potential that resides within you.
Awesome.